Hello, my friend. Thank you so much for attending RCA EXP. We absolutely loved having you here at the school, and we hope that while you were here, you learned some tools, some strategies, some techniques that you were able to implement back in your classroom. Now, we thought it would be helpful, though, if I took a moment and just reminded you about some of the things that you witnessed while you were here. We know it was a whirlwind. We know that there was so much that we were sharing with you all at one time, and so we thought it might be helpful if I broke down a few of those protocols that we use in our classrooms to really make sure that we bring learning to the next level. Remember, when we're talking about student engagement, yes, our students can be engaged physically, they can be singing, they can be dancing, and engaged with what we're asking them to do, but the key is, are they engaged in their brains? Are they engaged with that academic content? And so some of the strategies and techniques that we use in our classrooms really help with this. Now, as I go through these, I'm not saying you should go back and try all of these all at once. It may not be appropriate and it may be overwhelming, and it's better to do a couple of things well and see that they stick and then add to it instead of trying to do everything all at once. And also, if you're excited about what you learned here and you're sharing with your staff, the same is true. Pick a couple of things that you think would be great solutions to some of the challenges that you're experiencing at your school. Start with those. It is always better to start small and add to what you are doing. I don't like what we call spray and pray staff development, where you just hope that you're going to throw everything out there and something sticks. Really pick what you think will be the solutions that will be most beneficial for your student population, your staff and their personalities, and what it is you're trying to accomplish. So let's break down some of those classroom protocols and remind you what you saw while you were in our classrooms watching them in session. Now, something that we think helps tremendously is tracking. Tracking is the idea that everyone in the classroom should be looking at the speaker, whether it's the teacher or whether it's a fellow student. And so if you could work with your students and have them make sure that they're always following whoever is speaking, we think that this will help tremendously. Now, how do we do this? We even teach it like a game sometimes. We'll even have distractions happening and say, can you follow? Who is it that's speaking? Now, we don't give a strict punishment if someone's not tracking, if they have attentional issues, but it's just a constant redirection, a reminder, and it is an expectation. Now, if a student is intentionally not tracking or they've been repeatedly asked to make sure that they're focusing, then of course, then a correction or a consequence might be appropriate. Now, also, in addition to tracking, we think it's important for you to make eye contact with your students. When you're teaching a lesson, don't look over them, look into their eyes. At the end of a lesson, you can even ask your students, how many of you did I make eye contact with during today's lesson, and see what they tell you. We feel like in schools, every child should be seen. No child should be invisible. Make sure you take the time to let each of them know that you see them and they are a part of your classroom. It helps create that sense of belonging and that feeling in your classroom that it's a warm, inviting, and safe space. Also, hand raising. We like to eliminate the raising of hands in our classroom. So for us, the way that it works is if you ask an open-ended question, several students may begin to answer, but what we do is we look at the student who we would like to speak, and you could even use a gesture. That student knows that that student should rise, and that should be the student to answer. Now, if two students were speaking at once, our students have even learned to say, oh, I'll hand it to you, Audrey, after I finish, because they know that that student also had a comment to make. If you find this hard, because honestly, this is one of the most challenging things for many educators to implement in their classroom, let me give you another strategy. If not raising hands is not going well for you, or you think that that's a big challenge, or maybe you're not quite ready for that yet, that is a game changer. In your classroom, if you have the protocol that no student can have a hand raised while anyone else is speaking, it's a game changer. Let me say that again. No student's hand can be raised while anyone else is speaking. Because you know what happens. If you're giving instructions and a student is like this the whole time, and then you finally call on that student, you know what they're going to do? They're going to ask you what you've just been talking about for 3 minutes. So somehow when you raise your hand, it's like your ears go closed and you don't listen anymore. And so while the student is speaking, no one's hand can be raised. If they start to raise their hand, tell them to put it down. But then after that student finishes, I give them almost like a little nonverbal cue. You can't raise your hand until because what will happen is students will start to do this. So when I do this, students will pick up on those nonverbal cues, and then other students will know, oh, there's a pause here. This would be an opportunity for me to share what I would like to say. Now, when our students do answer questions, they're required to stand and speak. And when they stand, they are not just to speak to the teacher, they're supposed to engage the whole classroom. Sometimes if a student is speaking to people behind them, they forget about them. And so if I'm talking to you, you don't want me doing this, and so you'll hear us say feet sometimes to remind students, no, your feet should be facing everyone. And I'm talking about something on the board, oh, but I would like you to know this, and something that I think, do you all agree with me? So our students are taught how to collectively bring everyone into the conversation, how to make the eye contact with them. And they're also taught things to say in response, either when they rise or when they finish what they say. For example, to add on to what Jacob just said, that's a good point, Xavier. However, I see it a little bit differently. Or even, oh, when I finish, I'll pass this to you. I know that you also have a comment. Or, what I love, here's what I got wrong. If you can get students to be able to speak about what they got wrong, they'll probably never make that mistake again. Now, how do you do that? Well, first of all, if the work's too easy, they're going to be embarrassed they got it wrong. But second of all, you model that. You know, when I was your age and I learned this, let me tell you what I used to always mess up. This is what I thought was confusing, and I don't want you to make the same mistake. Or give them something that's difficult and say, you know what, I don't expect any of you to have finished this quite yet, so let's talk about how far you were able to get in this time and where you think you were going next or where you might have made your mistake. That way, it shows students that the classroom is a place where mistakes happen. And so it's okay, but we need to talk about what we're learning. And that metacognition, thinking about your thinking, it makes all the difference. So when students rise, they often start with comments like that. And even when they finish, they may even say something like, did anyone else get that same answer? Or did anyone else make that same mistake? Knowing that we're in this together. It's a process. So the standing to speak, I think, is definitely one of those things. If you can use that in your classroom, it's a game changer because it teaches students that they have a voice. Now, what do you do if you've got students who are shy? They don't want to stand up. Well, you've got to create this environment where you tell students there's nothing wrong with being shy. However, if you come here and you have all the knowledge in the world and you don't feel confident getting up and speaking about what you believe or what you think or sharing your ideas, well, then we've done you a disservice because no matter what career you have in the future, you have a voice and you want to be able to share your ideas with others. And so it's an expectation here, but it's also done in a very safe, warm environment as well. Which kind of brings me to that part about clapping, celebrating, uplifting one another. It's a big part of what we do here. You see that in our classrooms we use a lot of chants and cheers. Now, please know this, it can be overdone. If every single time a child gets an answer correct, everybody's clapping, ALT-RUI-SMO, ISI, every single time, well, you'll never get anything accomplished. It's too much, it's disruptive. So you want to use them sparingly, but also where the students do feel like that was a good answer because everybody celebrated for me. The chants and cheers, remember, they're short, they're quick, they're powerful. We use them really for one of a few things. We use them to celebrate a student or a group of students for a job well done. We also use chants and cheers to redirect student behavior. They're quick, they're fast. Sometimes we're telling students what to pick up, what to put down, where to look, where not to look. So those chants and cheers are used to redirect student behavior in a very quick and powerful manner. Also, the chants and cheers can be used sometimes during transitions, or if you see, okay, they're getting a little squirmy, they need a moment, and I need to get them to get those squirms out so that they're focused. So I might say something like, stop bouncing around. And they may say, bouncing around, bounce. That's their final bounce. No more bounces to be had. I need them to come back together. And when you do these chants, also, please remember that collectively having everyone in sync is important and that they end and transition quickly. It's not after the cheer that you want people going, and continue it. No, that's too much. It's over, it's done. Even if you need to stop and say, we're gonna do that one more time, and this time we're gonna end the right way. I need you to do that one more time because it teaches them that the expectation was not met. So much of what we do in our classroom is based on clarity and expectations. We show our students what it looks like and what it sounds like, and when it does not meet the mark, we make them do it again. And it is worth doing that. It's worth taking the time to do that because then they understand what the standard is. I like to say high expectations are your outward manifestation of your belief in someone. If I don't have high expectations, I don't think you can do it. No, I have high expectations, and I'm going to teach you how to get there, and I'm going to teach you in many different ways, but this is what the standard is. This is what I want you to do in the classroom. So a couple of other things in our classroom about protocols also is the use of hands, for you as the teacher as well. When you are speaking, you want to have your hands above your waist. You want to use these hand gestures in a way that engages the students and helps them to be able to attend to what you're saying. Let me give you a little trick. Pretend you have a little invisible box right here in front of you. Whenever I speak, my hands should flow naturally within this box. However, I just said something important. If I say something important, your hands go outside the box. Now, you don't want to look like you're swatting flies. That's too much. But as you're speaking, something you've got to know about complex sentences. There's one independent clause and one subordinate clause. And if the subordinate clause is first, you put a comma after it. So the important information, I use my hands, I use my gestures to convey what my thought is. Now, outside the box down here, down below, that's like I surrender. Don't do that. And don't put your hands in your pockets while you're teaching. There's been a lot of research that people with your hands in your pockets, believe it or not, you are seen as less trustworthy. So keep the hands out of the pockets. Now, something else though, what about your feet? Because you've got to get to all the students in your classroom. And you have seen that our teachers here, we are very expressive with our hand gestures. Something to keep in mind with your feet is when you are transitioning, you move to other places in the classroom. But when it's something important to say, you plant your feet. It's almost the opposite of your hands. Your hands get big, your feet stay still. Because if I'm walking back and forth in and out of this camera, you see how distracting that is if I'm telling you something important. However, if I pause and I stand, it makes all the difference. So plant your feet, and then as you're transitioning, you can move to another area. Oh, and also you need to know this. When you do this, it helps students to be able to attend instead of hearing your feet clacking and your bracelets jangling and your hair flipping and all those different things. So these hand gestures are important for you, but they're also important for your students to learn the power of them as well. And when it comes to using your hands and facing the class, this is the hard one. When we write on the board, we write like this. Now, if you're a lefty, I acknowledge it's harder, but we do have lefties who have done it. It does take a little more practice. But when I'm writing, think about it this way. Let's say you're in my class right now, and I said, that's a great answer, let's try some more. I just lost you. I saw you throw something across the room, right? That's when you lose your attentive students. And it honestly, it's dead space. They lose focus. And so when something is being written on the board, we write like this. And even if I'm writing like this, there could be some students over here that are getting the side of my body and they're not seeing. So I may write and then, pull everyone. Yes, so as we were looking at this, so if you try to practice that, you got to practice it. Do it on your own when nobody's in the room. But if you can get that down, it's also a way where you're engaging every student. And let me tell you something, it helps with discipline because you're never turning your back. You actually have them all right in front of you as you are engaging in your classroom instruction. So those are some things that we think make a big difference, the protocols we use in our class. And whether you realize that you were seeing those in class to class, and we try to be very consistent with it, but it's something that we still work on in our school as well. And you don't have to try all of them. Honestly, if I were you, I would do the tracking. I would really work on no one's hand being raised when someone's speaking, and I would really work on your movement with purpose, and I would think about asking students to stand and speak. Especially if you've got younger students and you start that way, they'll think that that's just how school is. It's normal for them. And so the ability for them to do that as they get older and older throughout the school, it will be transformative for them and the opportunities that are presented to them as well. So all those things that I broke down for you, those are also listed in the implementation guide that's in the booklet that you received when you went to RCA EXP. So it can help remind you of some of those important things. And so hopefully these are some things that you can try. Now also, remember, you saw some of the house system in action, and you may go back and try to do that, but we really, really encourage you strongly, if you're gonna implement the house system, to try to send your leadership, anybody who's in charge of houses at your school, to House Mania. Because we have found that schools where the staff is trained at House Mania and going deeper, then they really have even more success with implementation in their schools, because the whole 2 days is all about houses. So I want to thank you. I want to thank you for all you do. This is a time when it's very difficult to be a teacher, and those classroom protocols we think will help. We also hope that when you were here, you saw the importance here of creating a sense of belonging, of making sure that every child feels seen, of them knowing that they are loved, they're in a safe environment. Think about, as you go into this rest of this school year, also about ways that you can build your rapport with your students, ways that you can connect with your students, and ways you can connect with your parents as well. Think about those 1% ideas, those little things that make a big difference, but will also not only help your students, but will help you to be able to feel like, I'm killing it, I'm doing what I need to do. We are losing teachers faster than we're gaining them in this profession. And so grateful for you. Thank you for staying the course. Thank you for showing up. Remember, even on your worst of days, what you do has power. It really does. It has purpose and it has significance. We are so grateful that you're a part of the Ron Clark Academy community. Remember to stay engaged in Club RCA as well, so that we can continue to connect with you and answer any questions that you have to support you along your educational journey. Thank you for all you do. Have a great rest of your school year.